Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening. You are welcome to African Hour. My name is Fru Nkimben. I'm coming to you from Boston, Massachusetts, USA. African Hour has been on the air since 2000. An African Hour brings to light and brings guests to talk about issues that concerns mostly Africa and the world at large. Today I have distinguished luminaries in their various fields. I will give each and every one of them a moment to introduce themselves and tell you, our audience, where they are coming from. Today, we will focus on politics and the upcoming election in Cameroon. We know that politics is about people solving people problems. So we are going to look from a distance, and the issues we are talking now from across the ocean, some of these topics have been sent to me by our audience on ground zero from within Cameroon. And some of them send these issues for my panelists to discuss because they themselves are afraid to actually highlight these issues. It is my distinguished honor to welcome from the tip of the continent, Brother Milan Atam, coming to you from South Africa, and from Tuskegee University in Alabama, USA, Professor Bill Ndi, and in the Big Apple in New York, Professor Patrice Nganam from Stony Brook University. All my guests really need no introduction. Let me pass over to Comrade Milan at the tip of the continent in South Africa to greet my audience, my viewers, and my listeners. Comrade Milan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Fru. Thanks for this opportunity to once again express my opinion, our opinion on matters that concern us, that concern our people. My name is Milan Atam. I am based in Johannesburg, South Africa, even though at the moment I am around the Great Lakes region. I am the chairperson of the Southern Cameroons Alliance, and as well at the moment a consultant for the United Nations in the area of disaster risk reduction and emergency management. Over.
Thank you very much from the mother continent. We love to hear you. And coming all the way, going to Tuskegee, the famous Tuskegee, Brother Professor Bill Ndi. Talk to my audience, brother.
Well, thank you very much, Comrade Fru. And I would seize this opportunity also to greet my fellow panelist, Comrade Atam Milan, Prof. Patrice Nganang. I want to thank you for this initiative, and to the audience, I want to thank them for their dedication and their desire and willingness to want to know more, because as the scriptures rightly put it, our people perish for the lack of knowledge. And we are here to shed light on some of the things that is irking them. And for starters, as you already introduced, my name, I'm Bill Ndi of Tuskegee University, and a Pan-African Writers, member of the Pan-African Writers Association, and coordinating the Pan-African Writers Association wing, WAFOD, which is the writers of African origin in the diaspora. So the issues that, irk Cameroon, Africa, and the world is generally the concern of every writer. And I think it is necessary that the voice of the writers are heard. I know if you look at the history, every revolution that has succeeded on earth has had its philosophers. So the revolution that Cameroon is awaiting and undergoing should also have people talking, the philosophers of such revolutions. So I thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to an enlightening discussion.
Thank you very much for that warm introduction. My brother, Professor Ngana, you have been in the thick of this struggle in the gallows in Cameroon. You even march with us and the mayor of Lowell here on the streets. We would love to hear from you, and let us, me and my audience, know a little bit of who you are from you. Sir, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I think it is a personal pleasure for me, in particular, to be here and to sing Freaking Mendes, seeing Milan. I think I see the smile on your face because the activist that I am owes a lot of gratitude to what you did. I think some people underestimate what it is to be trained as an activist because the actions that one can actually, you have an action here, but activism is organized action, and it is taught through action. It is actually action with people who are in an organization, you see. So it's a particular pleasure because for somebody like me, who essentially I'm a writer and an academic, and who comes from a landscape where words have a meaning only in a page. So it has been a journey, really, to move from that landscape and to land in one in which words have a meaning only as much as one is capable of putting other people in agreement with those words, only as much as one is capable of doing some some organizing, and so that was 2019, really. And I would say for anybody who knows me, 2019 was really a radical shift in my life. That I still sit here is a testament to your to your mentorship. And you don't know that probably, or maybe, but my gratitude is really large, very much so.
Thank you very much, and I will tell my viewers that all of us are united, connected in one thing, that all of you have a piece of Lowell. You've all visited Lowell and walked the streets of Lowell. My brother, Professor Ndi, your first home was Lowell, and your home always in Lowell. Comrade Milan, you were here in Lowell, was received by the city council, and those are memorable events. That was part of the activism that Prof. Patrice Ngana has mentioned. Professor Patrice Ngana, you were also received by the city of Lowell. You walked and demonstrated, marched with the mayor, and also received a citation from the state of Massachusetts. So all of you, all of you are connected to Lowell in somehow.
Yeah.
Well, I think to start this, let's get serious. You must have watched a video. I'm going to play this video now for us to watch.
I salute all man where they see through this post this evening. I talk from Makenene, Mbam and Inubu subdivision, where now for Cameroon. I try for make we people them where they for outside and for inside this country for understand the kind of situation them where the Anglophone people them where they come up from southwest and northwest, where they don't go settle for that side from Makinene, where they go through a lot of pains for them. So actually these people them they people of Benin, which be na the people for the state, they claim ownership over the land of Makenene. So these people, they don't actually decide say Anglophone people them for they know will get peace. So they try for talk say if you be in a person where you did for Makenene and you know you feel this pain, where we would try for talk I beg make and me other people they understand so that we go get helping hand from the government and other authorities found in Cameroon. I beg we try for talk say the people of this Benin that where they don't their chief don't actually instruct them, which he been a chief of Njitole, whom he have talked to his people to go and claim ownership over all the farmlands belonging to all the Anglophone people, beginning from Sasa and Tundu, because it is their land in his children and his children's. And village members have beaten and chased out all the Anglophone and they have harvested all their farm products. We try for talk say we the people where we dey for Makenene we know they get peace because these people they do not actually take all things where we would try for understand and all things where we hope like they fit give money where we use and chop what means of survival these people they want take out from we and we know like actually we don't lay complaints for the authorities of Cameroon but we still wait to say me they react. And the reason why we make this video now because the chief of Njitole don't actually make them clear for we say me all the Anglophone people them where they dey for Makenene me they come out me they go back for their land. We actually beg the authorities say me they try we intervene for this situation because we the Anglophone people them where we dey for Makenene we go through a lot. So actually this chief he don't give us reason say on Monday where he been at the 1st of June he go to come out with their boys where they don't actually threaten to bring war. They don't threaten say they will bring war for we the Anglophone people then where we dey for Makenene. Secondly, they don't also talk say on this Monday, the 1st of June, they will all be out to chase all the Anglophone people out of their land in weapons and in guns. We dey try for plead on the authorities for understand through us and make it intervene for this situation. They don't clearly make them known for this say this Monday all the English people where they Makenene will be sent back to their land. We actually want to hear from the government. We need help please. By Monday, if God does not intervene, there will be serious gun shooting in the land of Makenene and help is needed in this country, Cameroon. We actually need peace for the country. We don't want war. Now why would he try to make this video? This video it shows say we don't get two of these particular people them where they terrorize we, they know they give a peace for this land, and these people we don't give them for the hand of the government, and because we don't do this, these people they know and left we rest, so they don't actually talk say for Monday they will chase out all the Anglophone people them where they for this place Makenene, and we where we been at the Anglophone people them for this land we no get peace. Government, we need your help. We need the help of the government. I beg any man where you don't watch this video and you sitting where we the Anglophone people them where they Makenene they go through. I beg may your help try for share this video. May the video go worldwide so that we will live in peace and harmony. Now we the people of Makenene we cry the beg say may God help me because we know really they happy for this place. I beg Mona try share the video. Thank you.
That video was sent to me by our brothers on the ground of our brothers in the eastern region, central region, being forced out of their homes, their properties, burnt. They were abused, assaulted, and they asked me a question that the word in the mouth of all politicians is that Cameroon is indivisible. So they are wondering, they have not heard from any candidate about their plight, their persecution. Does that mean that there are some second-class citizens in Cameroon who are not allowed to live, enjoy the freedom of citizenship anywhere in the country? So this question, I really like us to feel the pain of our brothers who are being persecuted, some who have been killed just because they come from the southwest and the northwest region. Let me bring it up a discussion. It is open, please. There is, I think, this issue affects and touch all of us.
Thank you, Comrade Fru, for that question. If my other panelists don't mind, let me take the lead in this conversation, where the question is about the one and indivisibility of the nation. Let us tell our viewers, first of all, that when you talk of one and indivisible, it means there has always been one Cameroon. That Cameroon is tied by pact or treaties that make it so impossible for the division to take place. But if we go back to our history, be it pre-colonial times, to the colonial times, even to modern day, we realize that talking of one and indivisible is a misnomer. In Pidgin English, that one means na ojoro talk, not be talk we hold water. So, telling us about one and indivisible Cameroon, I would like the audience to understand that as the voter, as the people, they hold the power to request accountability for anybody in that nation who is running to be president. I have this to say, you can't take the leadership of a country like Cameroon that has been for more than 6 decades without accountability from anybody, without accountability neither from the government nor the government, then you are coming to take power without a clear plan for making sure that the wrongs of history will be addressed or is in the process of being addressed. It means you are running to take a country that is in chaos, and you will run it as chaotically as the previous governments. The video you talk about, it saddened me so much to realize how much pain is still being inflicted on our citizens, on our own people who have been running away from harm's way, that they go again and be put on harm's way with impunity. And we have candidates coming up without even addressing what is seen as an infringement. What is happening to those villages, to those young people whose houses are burned in eastern part of the country is actually war crimes. It is like you take you capture you take a refugee, somebody who's been running away from war, and you execute them. When they are being beaten, thrown out of their houses, where do they go to from there? They are not second-class citizens. So it is for us as a people, as the voices, to speak for these people, to hold these politicians accountable. And I would challenge any of the politicians running, Comrade Fru, extend an invitation to any of them to come and discuss with us freely so that we have questions to ask them, just as your audience have questions for us to enlighten them on. Let me not take too much of the time because I see Prof. Patrice Nganang and Comrade Milan. They have a lot to say, and this is really something I think we should look at and get right to the bottom of it. Thank you.
Well, Professor Ngana, you were once a prisoner of conscience. Over to you, Prof.
Well, I think Bill actually articulated the most important things. The facts on the table is that from 2017 to now is essentially, 8 years. 8 years have passed. And, in 8 years, children are born. They're 8 years old now. They are already going to school.
Yeah.
And, they're running around and they're boys and girls. So the question is, what do we do? So it is, first of all, one of, assessing the record of our actions on the part of the government, certainly, but also on the part of activists, of Ambazonians. So what do we gain? What do we lose? Do we go forward in our actions and kind of going on the board and having a summary of what we achieved? So, but it is also, I think, a moment to look at what Cameroon has on its agenda and to see in what way one can adapt what one is doing to that agenda. And that agenda is an election that should not have taken place in the first place. So, because and I'm not saying it theoretically, I'm saying it as a general proposition, because we have a president who is there for now, it's going to be 50 years until he leaves, which actually has never happened in Africa. I'm not saying that in politics nothing is possible. I'm just saying that it is a shame. It is a particular shame. So we are not blessed in that respect, because in our propositions, any regime change also sets the agenda. So be it in the form of a coup, be it in the form of whatever, so you have a setting of the agenda in the sense that the lingering problems come to the forefront and one looks for solutions with a new person. And now when you have a person who is there for 50 years and it has never happened in Africa that long, you have problems that are simply, it is, you have an abscess becoming a cancer becoming an amputation, and an amputation becoming a death in a sentence. So people adjust to it. You have, I would say, on the political landscape, a country in which political parties have morphed into regional entities. So you have parties of the North, you have parties, Anglophone parties, you have parties of the South. And so that question, therefore, will, in my mind, in my sense, be a question to SDF, to Oshi, okay, on his platform, because he's the one running for the English-speaking part of Cameroon, for the mantle of the old SDF. On his platform, does he address the issues that concern the people he is representing, even factually? And you have somebody who, I don't call him a serious candidate, but we've seen in our country totally unserious candidates becoming ministers for 10 years. so Akeremuna, that's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So does he even have a view? Does he even have an articulation for the issues that concern, actually, that were even created by his own dad, you see? So this is my rephrasing of your question, considering the landscape of Cameroon today. I don't think they do have. I don't think Oshi has, the specific issue of English-speaking Cameroonians on his platform. I don't think Akemuna does, because he's not a serious candidate. But unserious candidates have serious, positions sometimes. So Therefore, it is a task, I'll say, of activists to keep asking those questions. You may notice I have mentioned, Akbar Bala specifically because I think it is a time of, of elections, and he's not running for office. I think first and foremost, one should ask those who are running for office, to become president, if they think that, that election actually concerns the people who are murdered, who are raped, whose villages are burnt, etc., who are being genocided. And I'm not sure they think it does concern them.
Prof, thank you very much. I think you have touched three names: Barrister, civil rights activist Barrister Bala, candidate, presidential candidate Honorable Akere Muna, Barrister Muna, and Mr. Osi for SDF. And I wonder, the same video that we have seen, these are their children. They come from where they are, and these are the people who they want to vote for them to lead the country. That when I see that video, I cannot sleep. And I see these people making speeches around the country and also around the world. But their children are being persecuted, are being killed, are being murdered. And that baffles me. Comrade Milan, you've been in the thin and thick of this. The ball stops on your desk to say what you have in your mind.
The ball in my court.
Yes.
Thank you very much, comrades, and thanks a lot to Bill and to Patrice for their interventions. Listening to them, they've touched on some very important issues. What I'm going to say is not going to be much different from what they have said. But one thing that we need to understand in this whole discussion is that the persecution of Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, so Anglophones in Cameroon is not a new phenomenon. It's always been there. It has happened in lots of different ways, through administrative persecution and exclusion, through what is happening now in some parts of the center, where we are beginning to see traditional leaders, community leaders come out in a rather with so much impunity to do it, because we have gotten to the point where what used to be done in pretense doesn't need to be done anymore. You can do it with impunity and with all the verve, and not be afraid of what the consequences might be. And I think that's where we are. For me, it is an indicator of how much things have disintegrated and they've degenerated over the past few years. Now, we also need to remember that this, again, when you hear, and I think part of your question was this lingo of the regime to say Cameroon remains one and indivisible. I think Bill touched on it, and it's all part of a whitewash that they are trying to project. And this is largely linked to the kind of miseducation which the regime, with the help of its French masters, have pushed through the miseducation of the average Francophone. During, I think, sometime in 2018 or 19, I remember one very prominent Francophone politician, and somebody I respect a lot, called me and said, "You know what, Milan, this issue of yours has led me to understand just how much we were miseducated. The fact that the average Francophone was educated to understand that former British Southern Cameroon was actually part of La République that was brought back into the fold. So it's like some little baby that got lost and then you went and brought back." And so, to a certain extent, I've always said I don't blame the average Francophone, because they too are victims of a system that has been made to brainwash them. But again, we all know it's short-lived. We've seen the case of Sudan and the Southern Sudans. When the South Sudanese were pushing and screaming about the treatment they were getting from the north, the so-called Arab Sudanese did not care, and they felt, well, Sudan remains one and indivisible. And I remember the late John Garang used to tell them, if you want us to stay together, then make unity attractive. And I think for me, that's the proposition that must stay on the table all the time. If you want us to stay together, then make unity attractive. Now, moving away from that, it's also important to note that the current relationship between the Francophone Cameroon and the Southern Cameroons largely stems also, and the fact that our people find themselves in this state of victimization is a price that the people continue to pay over 60, 70 years later due to the choices that were made by the leaders at the time, and largely the Prime Minister, John Foncha. His sympathy and generosity and hospitality towards the leadership of the UPC who fled French Cameroon into our territory. And his understanding at the time, together with the likes of Nkwame Nkrumah, Nyobe, and his Felix Mumia, and so on, understood that it's Pan-Africanism was the way to go. So it is no accident that we are paying the price we pay today. It's the price of standing and believing that Pan-Africanism is the future of Africa. Foncha was a staunch believer, and that's why he associated very strongly with the UPC. That has caused our people to go through this decades of victimization as a result of French interference, the genocide of the Bamileke who were resistant to French influence, and ultimately the Southern Cameroons as the rear base for the resistance against French hegemony in Africa. So there is a long history to this. It's not something that came out of the blue. It's historic, and it's linked to a very long struggle of Africans trying to stay together, to be together. Now, moving away from that, and I mean, whether you like it or not, we talked about the politicians and their positions. What have they said or done about this? As the Southern Cameroons Alliance, and as you know, recently we've broadened the leadership to include caucuses, federalists, civil society leaders, as well as independencies, to say we need to start pulling ranks if we want to overcome this regime. A regime that has made every single one of us victims, whether we like it or not. A statement has been put out by the Federalist Caucus condemning the issue, and they are in the process of, because they've got a presence on the ground, they're in the process of doing a lot more digging. We have also spoken to a number of media persons and personalities who have confirmed, indeed, because for a while, the tendency, as usual, of the regime was to sweep it under the carpet and pretend that it didn't happen. But then we've been doing some digging, spoken to people of the media, and they have confirmed that after a lot of hard work, they realized that indeed it was true. People of those who originate from the Southern Cameroons, and that's, of course, to a certain extent, people from the Western province are victims of this. An act of victimization which has implicitly and tacitly been supported by the regime in place. So for me, it comes as no surprise. It is just a bit of a pity that politicians have not stood forward to condemn this act, to represent their people, but I think it's also understandable. The vaulting ambition of wanting to be president at all costs, and by so doing, even as a Southern Cameroonian, you're thinking, my numbers or the numbers of Southern Cameroonians would not propel me to the presidency. I need to find a way of appeasing the broader majority of Francophones by not talking about these issues. For me, I think it's a bit unfortunate and to a certain extent miscalculated, in the sense that anybody who understands how this regime operates, and that's what Patrice was talking about just now, would know that it doesn't matter how popular you are, it doesn't matter how brilliant your manifesto is, it doesn't matter how much the people love you, this regime is still going to rig the elections. It becomes important that you stay relevant to your constituency. And their positioning in trying to appeal appease everybody in lots of ways makes them irrelevant, in my opinion. And while, and this is me talking about politicking in Cameroon, I am very strongly, and now it brings to mind the fact that maybe there is the need for a champion of the people, and that for somebody who says they're of Southern Cameroonian origin and wanting to stand for any kind of elected position, it is important also that they begin to see themselves, even within this contraption called Cameroon, that 20% of the population's support is quite massive and important. And there's probably no other group in Cameroon that carries that much weight. If you look at the numbers in real terms, not in terms of how the regime has always tried to project it in order to win elections. And as a result, it becomes important that a people's champion emerges. But outside of that, as the resistance, the Southern Cameroon's resistance, we understand also that no amount of politicking within the contraption is going to bring the kind of freedom our people want. That is why where we stand remains that we want to see our people govern themselves. And that's our position on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that expansive response. I have a question from Douala, Cameroon. That's, as I mentioned, most of the people did send me question, and this question is particularly concerns about the politicians that we are talking about. Let me read the questions verbatim. How can we trust politicians like Bello Buba Maigari and Isa Churuma Bakari, who have been part of the same system that has created more harm than good to us? Is it okay for any Anglophone candidate to run for the presidency with the present state of affairs? In short, war in the Northwest and Southwest region? Well, that is coming from ground zero. You see, I'm just a vehicle, and I'm glad that people on the ground, they listen to my call for questions. I throw it over to you. Professor Nganum, do you want to go first?
Oh, yes. So I don't mind, answering or, giving my own 2 cents there. I think when we think of the northerners of Cameroon, it is always, at least I've started to look at the northerners of Cameroon as a population that shares a lot with the northerners of Nigeria as well. And as a population that administratively was, had a part, the northern Cameroons, that was linked to the southern Cameroons, a part that went to Nigeria. So you have two Adamawas, and you have all those bases. Yeah, during colonial times, where we're all together. In essence, I am not a child of the moment when they were together, and indeed, I think the circulation of people between the two countries in the north is still fluent. Because, of course, they speak for full day, etc. So they have a communal language, which will not necessarily happen in the part I come from. But today, one can see that the northern Cameroons going with Nigeria, let us remove Boko Haram from the equation, because it blurs our discourse very often. I think if we look at it from the point of view of colonial consequences, one will see that the pain is felt more in southern Cameroons than it is felt in northern Cameroons. So as a consequence, I tend to think that people from the north, Adamawa, and extreme north, they still live with people from the part of Nigeria that was northern Cameroons, meaning they haven't stopped being brothers and sisters. After all, they speak the same language. They haven't stopped interacting with each other. After all, the country is not taken away on the back of a mule and sent to Senegal. It is still there. despite the fact that it is now a part of Nigeria. And was it not Boko Haram that had blood the cards, one would have had a very peaceful cohabitation between the people of those two regions, and people would have had a life that goes forward. What I'm trying to say is that historical perspective is sometimes important in analyzing things that are the consequences of history. And simply to put people to the task of looking into the past and seeing that the northern Cameroons and the southern Cameroons go from the same starting block. And the consequence today is that the southern Cameroons is suffering more than the northern Cameroons, administratively, in terms of demands, in terms of requests, etc. So there is something there. Now, regarding the politicians that represent, I said before that Cameroon has in a sense, a federative, ethnic federative political system. So the northern parties stopped in 1997. They actually physically, and in 2004, I think, with Issa Chiroma's party, they stopped being political parties that represent the North. Because they went into an alliance with the Southern Party of Paul Biya. So anyone who writes the history of political parties in Cameroon and forgets the ethnic dimension of their constituency, I think is not playing fair. Because from 1997 or 2004, Adamawa, the North and the extreme North, and did not stop having a political candidate for election. They simply stopped. There was Gaga Haman Aji, who was a free-floating entity like Akere Muna now. So a free-floating entity, nobody knew what he's doing. And maybe people were voting for him in Briketiri, in Yaoundé. So that was enough because nobody ever saw him doing any campaigning in the North. Nobody ever saw him doing the campaigning in the extreme North or even in Adamawa. He was in his house in Yaoundé and saying that he's a candidate every time you had an election. In 2011, he was a candidate. 2004, he was a candidate, and 2018. And now, since he's too old, they felt that they may, change the landscape a little bit, and Issa Chiroma is going to pick the mantle that he cannot carry anymore. As you can see, Gaga Haman Aji is not a candidate, but he used to be the candidate of the North. What I'm trying to say is that the political constituency of political parties in Cameroon is ethnic, and the alliance is an ethnic alliance. So we are having a de facto political federalism. Now, the candidates of the North that have declared that they are, that they are running for, for the office of president, there is only one. It is Issa Chiroma, because who has vocally said that he's running. But Milan knows politics better than I ever do. We understand that he's running instead of Gaga Haman Aji, who has been occupying that space from 1997 until now. So he simply they've shifted the head of their torchbearer, if I may say that, because Bello Buba, the last time I heard him speak was yesterday. He hasn't shown his letter of resignation. He said that he resigned, but nobody has seen his letter of resignation. And I think it is important politically to see that first, to understand if he really resigned, because it can be it can actually be a political move.
He has actually clarified that he hasn't resigned.
Oh, there we go. There we go. And even in that video I saw where he was saying that he hasn't questioned his alliance with IDPC yet. So and that alliance had a drastic consequence. The consequence was that the North never presented a political party. The North was exactly the place where people went simply for errands, and Bia will go to Marwa, have a fake political rally, and go back to Yaoundé and have a win of 90%. Because since 1997, the North has not presented any candidate in that ethnic composition of political federalism that we have. So the North has a lot to say in the Southern Cameroonian plight. The North has a lot to say because he used to share the same political landscape. The North has remained silent. The North has remained administratively silent. The North has decided in 1997 to become politically silent until today. So I will see. And what is actually maybe the third chapter I'll mention is that what is quite funny is that, funny in the political sense, is that when you speak to many Northerners, they are totally bilingual. They are the most bilingual of in that Cameroon. So, and people from Yaoundé don't know that. The Northerners, they are the ones who commute between Nigeria and Cameroon very easily. So they are fundamentally bilingual. So I think the North has a lot to say, and more so people from extreme North, because they are the ones who are even closer. I think the North has a lot to say in that. But the North has, is still silent. The political candidates are, running for their survival. Nobody understands. I don't know what they are running away from because the memory of 1984 is quite old in the political landscape of Cameroon. Maybe not for the ruling class because people like Bello Buba or Issa Chiroma were casualties of 1984. Issa Chiroma was in jail for 6 years. Because of even Marafa, who is in jail now, is also a casualty of 84. So maybe that is what keeps them, silent. But I suspect they are still silent because they are in an alliance with, the ruling party, and therefore they cannot address an issue that organically is one they understand best.
No, I just wanted to thank Prof. Nganang for this enlightening conversation. But I have a lot. Your last point is talking about the political alliances. And I so happened to have spent time in what they call in French les coulisses du pouvoir à Paris. And Buba Bello, the candidate we're talking about, it is interesting to know that he has not tendered his resignation and that he is still very clear that his allegiance is still to the party. Because in 96-97, I used to translate for a newspaper, Afric Gulf magazine, and will have press passes, access to, conversations at that level. And at one of the forum, it was agreed that Bello Buba would be the next of kin to Biya when the time comes, if he only stays quiet.
Very good.
So it doesn't come to me as a surprise. It doesn't come to me as a surprise. And, with looking at him, he was actually the person, the go-to person in Paris, set up to derail after 2 occasions of the late chairman showing up in Paris, and they tendered him all sorts of offer. The guy said, no, what I want is freedom for my people. And they said, this kind of African, we don't understand. Quel type d'Africain est celui-ci? On ne le comprend pas. Il n'est pas africain. And they got Bello Buba, and I can confess here, without putting anybody to judgment, after one of such conversations with the French premier, I left and I picked my phone. The chairman had gone to Cameroon. I called and spent about an hour trying to convince him for the 97 elections. This is a trap they have set. Tomorrow after the elections, you don't have anything to tell your electorate. Could you just, in the remaining 2 or 3 weeks left of the election, say you are standing as a candidate to discredit a Biya presidency? That did not happen. my voice was not heard. But I'm sharing this to say politicians like Bello Buba Maigari, Isa Chiroma Bakari, these are not people to be trusted. They cannot be trusted. Where was Isa Chiroma Bakari 8 years ago when this crisis started? The persecution of Southern Cameroonians. What did he say? Did not one of the ministers declare, even from the time you look at the northern parties, the northern bloc, somebody like Saoudou Daoudou once said, les anglophones n'ont rien apporté dans cette union. Okay? And one of the things we should educate our people on is that la République du Cameroun voted against, avait voté contre l'indépendance de Southern Cameroons. And the question I have is, who is the person who wants you down, who will show you the way up? Is Cameroon just waking up today and seeing that, oh, Southern Cameroons is part of a country that wants to be free, let us give them freedom? No. And this question is addressed specifically to any Anglophone who is a candidate for the presidency. A candidate for a presidency in what nation? Are you going to be president of a nation that has been considered enemy of the nation they chose to be part of? When Brother Ngana talked about the experience of Northern Cameroons and Southern Cameroons, I just felt I would point out something. Northern Cameroons have no complaint with Nigeria today because there is a treaty of union between Northern Cameroons and Nigeria. But Southern Cameroons and the Republic, we don't have any treaty of union. So it comes back to that first issue of Cameroon being one and indivisible. Cameroon is the only nation on planet Earth with 2 international boundaries. Why would Cameroon have 2 international boundaries if Cameroon was one and indivisible? We should be able to ask these questions. And for the Anglophone candidates, you don't go to run for presidency in a foreign land when your home is on fire. Turn off the fire, and then you can stand and run to conquer your nation and conquer the foreign land, because no matter what, this is not an indictment. There are good Francophones in La République, but there are some Francophones who see Southern Cameroonians just as next to nothing. 8 years ago, we heard the Northwest and the Southwest regions were just 2 cubes of sugar in a basin that will dissolve in less than 3 weeks, right? Now those 2 cubes of sugar have turned to 2 nuggets of gold that fire cannot even rust, that fire cannot destroy. So I think that in this conversation, we should be very mindful that as La République is going into an election season, let them play their theatrics, but let's not be fooled into thinking that any good can come out of it when they are using the same playbook they have used for 6 decades. What is going to change? What is it that is going to change? What are we seeing? Is there any possibility that we can hope that somebody would even speak of, granting some kind of semi-autonomy to the Northwest and Southwest regions? Even the creation of provinces and now regions was all a political scheme to divide our people. I can speak and even speak with a lot of authority because I know there are names that are not in history books for specific reasons. Kingmakers, you don't know who the kingmakers are, but I can speak like the son of a kingmaker, the architect of the politicians living in Enugu in 1953. I speak like his son. and I have details that I know for a fact that that part of the country, or that part, was united. It was united. There was no difference. Even when politicking, Foncha and Endele, they would disagree in public, and they will sit, dine, and wine together and say, we are doing this for the good of the nation. That is why you could have Endele as first premier, Foncha comes, leaves over to Jua, and the rest. That is the way politics is. And internationally, they could not have let us progress. Why? Because we're setting a very bad precedence. Comrade Milan, you did mention something of interest, which I want to draw the attention of your audience to understand. Our people are paying a price for harboring the Basas and the Bamilikes during the so-called Makiza Wars. And let's not forget it. And even if some of our Francophone, of our Anglophone brothers of Bassa or Bamileke extraction see themselves first as Francophones, based on the individual advantages they might gain, I want to plead with them to understand that when they would find themselves a minority back in that dispensation, if and when it happens that the country becomes two, they would still have to face the plight of the Southern Cameroonians today. It should be very clear to them. And I remember, I'm talking, and there is just so much coming to mind, and I want to address that issue Comrade Milan addressed about 20% of the electorate. Booker T. Washington, the founding president of my university, challenged America when they thought black people could not be educated, and he founded this institution. He asked America this simple question, which is a simple question to ask any politician in Cameroon. How would Cameroon be great without 20% of its population that could have completed the greatness of Cameroon? Cameroon can only be partially great. So I think there is a lot to say. I would leave maybe Comrade Milan, you continue from there. I could just go on and on. Thank you.
Well, it is a relay. You just passed the button. Comrade Milan, you have the button, and you have the floor.
Listening to Comrade Bill talk, I really wish that he had just continued. It's really interesting, and just to be honest, I would have preferred for you to go on and just explain, because I think you've really touched on the very key issues. How can you be great without the 20%? Which goes back to what I said about John Garang, when he said, make unity attractive. You can't be talking about unity when you're not working hard to make it attractive. And I think Patrice, in his analysis of the ethnocentric nature of politics in Cameroon, basically talks about the amalgamation that we call Cameroon today. But going back to the question about trust for Bello Boba and Chiroma, I think listening to both of you, you really kind of you address the issue of trust. In the alliance, we've taken the time to do some analysis, ask ourselves what really is happening, because it's important to try and delve into the minds of these individuals and their constituencies to try and understand what is it that drives this particular decision at this time. We all agree Bello Boba Maigari betrayed the what was it, the Union for Change in 1992, together with Adamu Ndamjoya, when perhaps together they could have beaten Mr. Biya. Over time, I think it's Patrice, or I don't know if it's Bill, who talked about 1997. Is there? Bello Boba has consistently been an ally of the regime. And listening to Comrade Bill talk about his experiences in France and everything, it makes a lot of sense why he had chosen. We should remember, like he said, that he was in exile. And when he came back and took over the UNDP, as it were, in lots of ways was a president in waiting, given that prior to 1984, during the coup d'etat, he was president in waiting. So they have always had a deal that they've cut with the Biya regime in terms of how they share the cake. And our analysis at the moment says that a number of things could be happening. And it's important that we bear this in mind as we observe. But for us, it's not just being observers, it's also being players in terms of what is the interest of our people. Number one, we do know that Mr. Biya is in a vegetative state. Everybody can see. It's not clear to anybody how long this man is going to be there, or if he is still there. We don't know if he is in a state right now that doesn't allow him to even step out or do anything. Maybe that's why all of a sudden the mice are dancing. So number one, it's either the reading of the situation that the boat is leaking, we need to jump before it sinks. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is that the boat from which we have always, or the cake from which we have always had our share, is beginning to elude us. And given, based on what Comrade Bill just mentioned, the fact that the individuals who seem to be in charge of power in Cameroon today are definitely not the Northerners. When you look at the likes of Ngongo and those who literally are running the show, they are positioning themselves. And when one does an analysis of potentially who could take over with the Biya, who indispensably has to go, it's either the Ngongo faction or the faction of the Dirka. So nowhere in this do you find the Northerners or the Westerners or anybody else. It remains very much a center-south Beti Bulu arrangement. And for that reason, they have taken the decision to say, one, the boat is sinking, we need to jump. Or two, the cake is being shared in a way that we don't see ourselves in this thing. So is it so much the care for democracy and the need for change and good governance? Of course, no. You cannot be part of a regime for the past 30, 35 years, and then all of a sudden you wake up this morning and realize that the governance was bad. So it's definitely not a matter of governance. It cannot be a matter of representation of your people either, because your people, everybody knows, everybody who's been to the north of Cameroon knows, anybody who has spent time in those areas amongst the Tupuri and the Hausa, the Fulani, and so on, know the desolate state in which they are in. So it's not a matter of development. It becomes a matter of the cake for the individual and their little constituency. So they are most likely sending out two messages. One, we are breaking away because it is our turn to take over, or we are breaking away because we are waiting for you to approach us, and let's have a new discussion now that there is going to be a change in dispensation as to what is our cut in this cake. And all they need to do is play this game into the election like they did in 1992 and 97. And then once they have cut their deal, they then go back into the government now with a renewed contract for the next, 40 years in terms of what is going to be their share of the cake. And they'll do this until they pass away. But a third very interesting analysis that we have made is that of neutralizing the Kamto effect. Kamto might not be the best candidate you can think of, but whether you like it or not, he is making waves in Cameroon today, and the international community is watching. And so they are left with one of two options. Option number one is eliminate him from the running on the basis of all the excuses they've been giving to say he doesn't qualify, and for that reason, he cannot run. Now, that is looking to be a bit of a difficult option. But then a more clever option could be to pull away attention from the Kamto effect and move it to the north. Give the impression that the northerners all of a sudden have woken up, there's movement in the north, and then all of a sudden the whole politics revolves around how do we appease the north, how do we bring the northerners into the fold. And by so doing, you end up with election results which are basically the same, but what you're doing is, at the end of the day, we have managed to convince the northerners to come back into the fold. Then nobody's talking about Kamto. Kamto becomes irrelevant in this whole arrangements. And that for us is a very, very important one that we need to take into consideration, that behind this there is some politicking that might not really be saying its name. So can we trust them? Definitely not. Absolutely not. Are they useful? Yes, we think they are useful in terms of the game that's being played, but they can never be trusted. Time and history has shown that not Northerners per se, but these individuals who purport to represent the interests of the North are definitely not to be trusted.